being an in-person school, people really want to join us and they are in a different country. We don't want our teachers to be the all-knowing authority on a topic and the students have to accept potential mistakes that the teachers might be teaching. I think that kind of structure on how we decide who gets to teach is fundamentally flawed, because when you look at people that graduate from university with a marketing degree. I talked to an accountant, very successful accounting business, and he has employees under him. And he tells me that, when he gets these people from the accounting degrees, they don't know what to do.
Welcome to the DevReady podcast.
Thanks for joining me on the DevReady podcast today. I have Ashish Alexander. Ashish, thanks for taking the time out of your day again.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Looking forward to this chat.
For those of you that are new here and don't know how I do this, I don't actually know Ashish or much about him, so I will let him take away and introduce himself because I'll do a terrible job if I try.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ashish. I was previously the founder of Revlearn, specifically career guidance, Revlearn. But right now, Revlearn's in a phase where we're pivoting to creating our own high school. So Revlearn School, you could call it. The specific name is not set in stone, but that's the pivot for my main organization, Revlearn. But other than that, I do run other organizations on the side. So I run a video editing, video marketing business called Ripple Media, and also help with a non-for-profit that is innovating in the language area, helping with translations and English.
Okay, so a bit of variety there, but more centered around sort of like education side. I'm guessing the media and video production is centered around probably those creators or those businesses as well.
Yeah. So we'll be focusing on businesses. It's basically a business plan yet to launch. So it's launching in a few weeks, in a week
cool.
or so.
Exciting. Yeah. On Revlearn, you mentioned there touching in that it's going to move into like a high school. Is that like actually trying to replace an actual educational high school, a proper school that people go to? Is it going to be an online school only?
It's going to be in-person school at the start.
Okay.
Because we believe in-person has the greatest kind of engagement versus online. Online is good, but it's not as engaging as in-person. So we're going to start off at in-person, but because being an in-person school, if people really want to join us and they are in a different country, we want to give them the chance to try out our very unique curriculum. So we're going to expand to online in the future.
Okay. I've never met anyone trying to make their own school before. So probably I've got a few questions there. It's what's involved in actually trying to set up a school, and is it going to be hard to get approved? And I'm sure there's a lot of regulation involved.
Yeah, it depends on which country you are in. So my school is not launched yet. It's launching in 2027 because with some things you definitely need a lot of money. So with school, it's the video editing marketing business is really a business to help me, get that savings to then invest it into the school. So that's the reason I'm, pausing the school for now. But it's still planned to launch. Now, some of the complexities of starting your own school or even university, because that was my previous kind of mission, was to start my own university, is all the the bureaucracy, the kind of like the education is a very slow moving industry. So just even if you work in a university or you work in a school, if you just want to make a change, it's just so many things, so many people you need to convince. And so that's really why universities or schools haven't really innovated that much. It's because of all these processes in place. Revlon is taking a very radical approach on on what school is for, what is learning for. Do we really need the very basic concepts? We might think, do we really need to be learning math, science, English at a very high level that school goes into for everyone? Do we really need teachers that have gone through educational system that is known for not training people for the workforce? It's very academic in nature. And so some of the key areas that make it illegal in some countries for my school is one, we're not going to have teachers that need bachelor or master degrees. Our teachers are going to be based on the skills they have. Are they great at teaching? Do they have that skill? Are they great at working with young people? There's different mentors in our school. Different people use different words for this in innovative schools. Uh, the traditional word has been teacher, but sometimes a student could know more about you in a topic, and so we don't want our teachers to be the all-knowing authority on a topic, and the students have to kind of accept potential mistakes that the teachers might be teaching. So we want to keep it more free. And so yeah, so in Australia my school would be illegal because because of that requirement that every teacher needs to have a bachelor degree. In the US, funnily, because the US is where a lot of this movement started from, and the key word for this moment is micro school and alternate schools. So these are the
Okay.
words. If you search up these words, you'll find schools like mine. The US actually, from the beginning, private schools had the right to to have teachers that don't have degrees, and it's only public schools that had that requirement for most states. But yeah, with the micro school, all school movement, or even before that, there was a homeschool movement, and parents, to be a homeschooling parent, you don't need a bachelor of education degree. In fact, you don't even need any degree. I think people don't realize that there are plenty of homeschooling parents that have really succeeded homeschooling their kids without any degrees. And there are schools in the US that have been practicing this for a while. And so the good thing about kind of opening it up to everyone is that we're gonna not single ourselves to a very small percentage of qualified teachers and expand it up to a broader workforce. For example, um, Microsoft's CEO or founder, Bill Gates, he doesn't say the degree was bad. Like some people like to talk bad about the university education, people like myself, but some people decided that it was a better use of their time to start their company than stay in university, because their company was either making profit already, or they were already had signs of success. So yeah, no, Bill Gates doesn't have a degree. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have it. So if I wanted Bill Gates to teach my computer science or information ICT subject, it would be illegal in Australia. And so I think that kind of structure on how we decide who gets to teach is fundamentally flawed, because when you look at people that graduate from university with a marketing degree, I talked to an accountant, very very successful accounting business, and he has employees under him, and he tells me that when he gets these people from the accounting degrees, they don't know what to do. Like he actually prefers the people that go to the TAFE for do those diplomas, which are more practical, because they actually have some skills they can use. So I feel like, yeah, those are the reasons we want to take a more open approach and really hire based on skills, and yeah, that's some of the bureaucracies, but there's a lot more things how our school is going to be different. The key controversial topic was the teachers, and that's why I brought it up
Okay.
first.
So
Yeah.
just in that whole concept, then how do you ensure that they're learning enough based? I know the government dictates what the standards are for every level,
Mhm.
and you seem to be opposed to their rule effectively, because that's why you're thinking about creating your own school and running that. But how do you ensure that people that are going through the journey of your education program are learning what they need to know?
Yeah, it's well, what I've realized in life is that you don't have to learn things at a very specific age, and if you haven't learned it at that age, and it does not mean you're going to lose out in life. I
Hmm.
can always, if I'm bad at maths, I can log into Khan Academy, which is, there's so many resources, and just learn the concept that I did not learn in school, or I slept in school, or I forgot. Like most people forget what they learn in school anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that the kind of uh, people, the misconception is, you have to learn at a certain age. You don't have to learn at a certain age. I believe that you need to learn what you need to do your next step. So if your next step is to get into accounting job, you need to know exactly what you need for that job. And look, most people traditionally, school has focused on getting people ready for university, right? University was the next step, and then after university was the job. But nowadays, there's more people realizing that you might go to university, but then you might face the same problem. A lot of parents talk about how their kids are unemployed or underemployed, working at a potentially like a cafe or a job that they didn't need a degree for, um, when they do have it, when they already have a degree. And so it's becoming even harder than ever, especially with AI and all these innovations that
Yeah.
people are not actually trained to actually have the skills for the job. So we want to train people on the skills we believe they need, and they want to learn. So yeah, to not spur too much controversy, we're not going to say that we're not going to teach maths. We're not going to say that we're not going to teach English. Like,
Mhm.
when you go to Elon Musk talks about first principles, which is let's go back to the basics. So what does a human need? Human needs a language, and so human needs to communicate with other people. Teamwork, collaboration. They need to problem solve, um, and then the other parts are more niche, right? So we would have some basic skills that people would generally expect our school to teach. So that would be the basic maths, science, English, but we won't have any hard requirements to be an expert in any topic. And if people want to opt out from a specific basic requirement because their parent feels that they don't need it, they're already very good at English, they don't want to keep studying this English subject, because we're gonna not make anything mandatory. So it's all based on what the parents and the students decide collectively, but we'll have recommended subjects, and we will be, I think, the main kind of difference is not that we're not going to teach the subjects that traditional schools teach, is
Mhm.
that we're going to teach it in a more engaging way. We're going to make it more practical. We're going to make it more connected to the real world. So it's a different way of teaching, and rather than not teaching them that. Yeah.
I agree with the hands-on approach and being more practical because that suits some people. But I'm going to challenge on the not deciding not to learn something part of it. From my opinion, it's you go through school to learn how to learn, not to become an expert in maths or physics. And you also need to be put up with things because that'll teach you how to persevere and deal with problems, not just say, I'm not interested in doing it, so I'm not going to do it anymore.
Mhm.
So you will learn resilience that way. You'll have perseverance, patience, and then you learn the basics, which then become not just basics, but you'll learn more foundational things that will help you get more knowledge in general. I find that the more knowledge I have, the easier it is to make connections between different things. And there's studies that there are very, very high performing people, the people that have multiple PhDs, if you look at them, they're in completely different fields because then they can learn things from the other fields that they haven't been exposed to. So if you give the people an easy way out of avoiding something, then they're going to, I think that may be more limiting in what they can learn and their potential for what they can learn in the future because they don't have as many connections they can make and different experiences that they've had. That's why you ask people for different opinions because they'll give us things you haven't seen. But if you can go through as much of it as possible, then you'll have a different opinion and a richer view on the world.
Right. No, you have a point regarding having a broad, like they call it the broad, or the generalist, or the all rounder, and some people talk about going broad at the beginning of your life and then narrowing down. Some people talk about narrowing down and going broad. Like there's all kinds of different things people talk about, but I definitely agree that for myself, I've been interested in various different things. So I'm probably the most broadly educated person one can find. So I know a lot about a lot of different things. And but what I've seen and I believe, which might be different to you is that when you go down a specific pathway, you generally, and you need to solve a specific problem, because let's say you're interested about um, you know using computers and working with computers. You go down a specific software, and then you realize that, okay, this computer is giving me a lot of errors. Why is that? And you look into it, and then you realize, okay, it's not just the software, it also could be the hardware. You don't have enough hardware to make this AI to work more efficiently. So you need to make not just the GPU is not just enough. Let's make an AI processor. So maybe in the future we might see AI chips, not just CPUs and GPUs, and people are innovating in that space. And so I think when you go down a specific topic, it kind of expands, and as you need to solve a specific problem, you run into like a wall. You kind of figure out, okay, actually, to do this, I need to learn about this side topic. But yeah, I see your point. Having a broad area of skills and careers, even careers too. People. My previous business was based on helping people find the career next step for them.
Mhm.
And people often thought, because I marketed it as passions, find your. I didn't say find your passion, but often people just throw out that statement, find your passion. I think the problem with that statement, and why people have problems with the statement, is one, and it kind of it expects people to think that there's one passion they have, and they need to
Yep.
find that one passion, when really you can have many passions in your life. Like Elon Musk, he started with I think selling some software when he was a kid, um, maybe a game, I think, and then he got into the payments company. Then he got into cars, and then space, and then AI, and so you can have many passions. Um, and the second problem with that is that people might not know that what their passion is. They might have interest, and as they go down those interests, they realize, okay, actually that's not for me. So they might hit those, okay, that's not interesting enough for me to continue this. And so, yeah, I don't believe follow your passion is the best statement, but I think that it's generally a better statement than with the regular, which is get a high paying job, because oftentimes young people kind of lack purpose. We're in a world where I feel that there's a low amount of purpose, and if you can help people find purpose, which and kind of things that drive them. For some people, sure, that could be money, because maybe they came from a poor family, and they struggled a lot, and
Mhm.
that's perfectly fine to have that as your one of your purposes, is to achieve this so that you can get financial freedom and retire your parents, or whatever. But for different people it might be different. And so to just say that everyone needs to follow the dream of owning your own house and all of that, I think is wrong. And so, kind of the Revlearn career exploration guidance focus for my previous um, project with Revlearn was really about helping young people find their interest and try out careers, try out projects, try things out, and listen to people who have been there before actually locking themselves in a degree. Because that's the general expected next step from a lot of families around the world. It's a very big culture in the US and India and Australia. Also, I've heard from some people, depending on what family you grew up in, it's
Mhm.
kind of like the default school kind of tells you that's the best right next step, at least from the high prestigious schools. But the problem with young people is that they don't know what they're getting into largely. They have a very base understanding on and they're very largely influenced by their friends and family. They get into the degree, they spend 15K a year. They spent 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And I know a lot of people, because I went to university myself. I know a lot of people that were third year university, or second year university, and now they just want to completely flip, and they don't get that money back, and they don't get that time back. And for some people, sure, it could have been valuable, but for a lot of people, they feel like that time investment and that money investment was not worth it for. And so yeah, Revlon, with our career exploration, was really, let's try out things in a much more quicker, cheaper way than going to university and trying out things through theory, because oftentimes university is, written assessments, theory. You listen to a lecturer who's teaching you, and so you really don't know whether you actually are going to be a good doctor by listening to how to be a doctor, rather than finding out, okay, actually this is a lot of blood, that's not for me. And so I actually heard some people that, that they realize that, okay, actually the blood is the problem for them. And so but only if they knew that, so I feel like a lot of people rush into the kind of the process of school is very largely based on, academic subjects without the practical parts of knowing about these careers. And so um, yeah, so that's what Revlearn career guidance was previously doing. And yeah.
So what pushed you into Revlearn then? Because you had the translation business where you're
Mhm.
assisting people in how to pronounce words with learning from different languages. But then what pushed you into Revlearn from there?
Actually, the translation business came after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but Revlon was my first business. It's what pushed me, and why the reason I started Revlon was, I grew up in India, and India's schooling system, specifically, I went to one of the worst curriculums in the Indians, because the different
Oh, no.
curriculums sometimes and my parents put me in that school because they said, they heard that's the easiest curriculum to score high marks in. So apparently, it's an easy curriculum,
Okay.
but that's what's easy is really subjective, because so what makes it easy is if you're really good at memorizing, you can just memorize the whole book and paste it down on your exam sheet
Hmm.
and get 100% or 99%.
Yeah.
So if you're good at memorizing, it's easy. But I
Okay.
actually, someone like me, I'm terrible at memorizing. So I'm
I'm the
actually,
same.
so actually it was the worst curriculum for me. And so yeah, but a lot of the Indian curriculums heavily rely on memorizing. Actually, around the world too, generally education, the memorizing part really helps you. Um, um, with the AI, we can know that that's not a skill that's actually going to be very relevant, because AI can memorize better than anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, no, that I really hated my Indian schooling experience. I moved to Australia, did my high school here. It was much better, but I think the problems of school, like I said, are around the world, and I didn't. I moved on to university. I dropped out from my first university. I dropped out from my second university, and I just realized this education system is not for me. And the Indian culture really pressures you to get a degree. In fact, even get a master's degree and then get a job. If you're in India, that's the process:
Hmm.
bachelor's, master's, and then you get it, then you get your job. Um, but yeah, it didn't work for me, and with all that pressure, it really struck something in me that, this system is really flawed in how it kind of judges people's potential. Because when you go to the workforce, really, that's when you actually find out actually who's good at the job. If you might have got A's in your degree, A's in your school, but that doesn't translate to you being good at a job.
Yeah.
And so that weak relation, when I did my logistics job, I didn't really understand why I needed my dropout business degree for that, because I did experience it, and I didn't really understand why I needed that for this. But and so yeah, that was the kind of motivation. How can we change education? And that's how I came into Revlon.
Okay. It's a lived experience because yeah, it's not for everyone, and everyone does learn things differently. And then there
Right.
is a lot of pressure to do well in traditional sense because it's from what I understand, a lot the Indian culture, and there's a lot of in the European cultures as well. It's what are other people going to say, and that probably drives a lot of that fear as well, which is you
Yeah.
have to do this, so then it doesn't give anyone else an opportunity to say something about you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's probably, when I come to think about it, it's probably a worldwide human trait or human
Yeah,
culture.
it probably is everywhere. People are worried that people are going to say something or think bad about them because they haven't done the traditional path and whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to
exactly.
be
Yeah.
successful, and everyone learns differently as well. So that's the other problem. It's some people learn visually, some are or using audio, some are with writing. Memorization is another skill. So it just depends on how the person's willing to learn. And I understand that different approaches in learning during school are beneficial, but most schools are not set for that. There's a standard way to do things, and you just have to conform.
Right. And specifically, school is largely hard for people that are neurodiverse. So later in life, I wasn't diagnosed when I was in school, but later in life, I found out that I was ADHD and dyslexic.
Mhm.
So, that explains why I never read books. I actually never finished a book ever, except for
Mhm.
one book that I was kind of forced to finish in school. That's it. So I only read one book from I'm not even sure if I finished the whole book, but
Yeah.
so yeah, that explains my dyslexia and all my spelling errors and mistakes and also my motivation with the kind of reinventing the English language, which might happen 100 years from now. Who knows? It is very hard to do that, but
Yeah.
there are languages that have been like I think it's Korean that or even Chinese, traditionally it was written a certain way, then they changed the whole alphabet structure, and then with some of the innovations with languages, the pronunciation of how you pronounce words is closer to the written.
Yeah.
But in English, because it was influenced by so many different cultures, so many people invaded England and all of that, and so there's so many influences in the language, the pronunciation is for a lot of words does not match the
No.
written. And so whenever someone is new to learning English, like not all a lot of languages have this problem, but English is one of the worst languages
Yeah.
for that
Yeah. The
relation.
French, German,
Yeah,
Latin, and then Greek influence on all of it. Just
yeah,
thinking
yeah,
of the
yeah,
word cough.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those
Yeah,
there is difficulty there. And it's
yeah,
not simple. I've got a Greek background, and that's generally as you see it is how you write it is how you say it. It's
yeah. Okay,
straightforward
right.
spelling.
So it's more straightforward
Yeah,
in Greek. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Exactly. So,
it, in your endeavors to with Revlearn and this other school, have you had any like key learnings just from the business in getting it to actually get successful or get to market?
yeah. So Revlon was my first business, and so financially we did not reach success with my first model of Revlon. But from a user standpoint, from a value standpoint, we did help a lot of people by creating a free online community. So we created a free online community in one of the most used platforms for young people, which is Discord. There's
Hmm.
other ones like Instagram and all of that, but Discord is where people chat the most. Um, and so over there we basically held a lot of free career exploration and guidance events. We had specific mentors helping out the young people answer all of their career and future related questions. We provided them with free resources, career tests, these quizzes that they can like the quizzes and tests. Sometimes, like personally, when I do these tests, or even personality test, somewhat related, in sometimes you get a different result each time you do it.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I think as a way to get some ideas on what are things you can consider, it's a good quick step you can do, get some ideas on the table. We had different resources that we kind of put it in a real clear directory, and really wanted to help out people for free. Along that process, we were able to get to speak to a lot of high schoolers and understand, how is school solving this problem? Are they solving this problem? And yeah, from that whole process, became even more believer that this is a big problem that needs to be solved. Is school, the way the school approaches career guidance is really bad. And that's why we see right now 40% of people drop out from their degrees, and for the other 60% that complete their degrees, 50% of them don't even work in a field that is relevant to their degree.
Yeah,
So
so
they're totally different.
very
Yeah.
demoralizing numbers there. It's
Yeah.
not what you expect, especially when you go through the effort and the years to do that.
Right. So we wanted to, help out people in school at that age, make better choices. Yeah.
I wish you all the best of luck with the Revlearn and the unnamed school that you're aiming to do, and then your new venture in the video and edit and marketing business to help you get to there. Hopefully, you can achieve that. If anyone wants to find out more about what you're currently doing or what you've done, or I want to have a discussion about your thoughts on things, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, and if you're not on LinkedIn, I'll be on Instagram and all the other social media platforms. I pretty much have a handle on all this. There are new platforms that are coming out, decentralized platforms. I haven't made accounts on them yet, but yeah,
I haven't got any of those yet either.
yeah, you should be able, to find me if you type my full name.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Ashish, thank you so much for your time today and an interesting chat. I haven't thought about that schooling and the approach and the differences in people at that level before. So thanks for opening that up for me.
Yeah, no, great to chat with you, Anthony.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.